Hi, everyone. Welcome to a featured interview by Atlas, where our mission is to accelerate the growth of impact startups through fundraising, marketing, networking, and mentorship. And today we have the pleasure of talking to Zach from Zauben, who are innovators of living walls, green roofs for homes and commercial buildings. So we're going to talk about not only the environmental and health benefits of these living walls, but also the various financial incentives and the potential growth of this space. Thank you so much, Zach, for joining us. This stuff looks really exciting.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
No problem. Before we get into all that, actually, let's start by giving us a brief background about yourself leading up to Zauben?
Yeah, happy to. It's been an interesting journey. I started here in Chicago in private equity, investment banking. Got my license at a group here, Zach's Investment Management. And one of the things I was focused in on during my time there was real estate. And what really captured my imagination was prop tech was now, beginning to become more and more in the mainstream. And then you had these green building incentives, LEED certifications, now WELL certifications of talking about the health and wellness in the building spaces. But ultimately, it was really, what's been going across Asia and Singapore and throughout Europe are these green roof mandates and this tie to biophilic design, working with cities, but also addressing even air pollution. To me, that was kind of the next evolution of whatever this is. I want to be part of it, and this is something that I think we all would like to imagine as a future. But the fact that it's beginning and it's happening, and really at this kind of this kind of reflective point in human history that we need to work more with our environment, but also we're all looking for solutions, multiple solutions to help better address climate change, and how can we offset that. So that ultimately led to a startup company that was focusing on living walls, where I really got to be immersed in the challenges, the growth, the pain points within the business, and then ultimately creating Zauben to what I feel we've further innovated the industry in terms of understanding built-in efficiencies, sensors to show how our walls are performing in real time versus sending someone on site to see it. And all that really was just collectively for, okay, cool. You have these beautiful green roofs, you have these living walls, these spaces. How do we lessen our carbon footprint to tend and care for these walls, and to have kind of eyes and ears on the site to ensure that our products are not just beautiful, but they're successful during their lifetime. So that's been it in a very short box, and a lot of obviously pains and tribulations of being within a startup. But I think what's exciting really now is we have not just climate change, but with COVID, it's been this renaissance of health and wellness from a holistic approach, from offices to cities. So it's, for us, I think we're the right time in the right place.
So why go through this pain? You came from a finance background. You could have just joined an investment bank, traded crypto. Why are you planning, walls and all like that? What is this burning passion you have? Why switch to this?
I think it's interesting, right? So in no way did I ever have a green thumb, but plants are kind of part of our they're innate in human nature. And, if we really think about it, we're just modern cave people, right? We've evolved in these habitats, in these environments. And, when we spend our existence, our present kind of time in our homes or the workplaces, we're very much removed from that. And maybe for me, at least, how do I say this nicely? The environment that I was working at was very stale, gray. What do they call it? The cube. It was a cube farm. Seeing this trajectory of even talking about healthier workspaces, happier environments, how plants make us more productive by as much as 30%, how they lower stress levels as much as 60%. Well, it's because it's a lot of our biology, and we even share some of our genetics with plants. And so that to me was really interesting, of just human performance, but also just health. I think it was one of those things where, when you think about something over and over again, you begin to not become obsessive, but that passion begins to, I think, build and grow as more you learn with whatever that is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the more people I talk to that are in the space, like I'm not an innovative myself, right? But the more people I talk to, the more passionate I get too, because, we're exchanging ideas on how to solve really big problems, right? And it creates meaning for us when we're tackling problems. So actually, speaking of that, can you actually highlight what problems Zauben is seeking out to address? You mentioned, you were working in a cubicle. Good thing you weren't working in a Wall Street pit. That's probably going to be even worse. But yeah, can you highlight the problems, whether environmental or whether human related or whether it's workplace, that Zauben is setting out to address?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think for us, it's a multifaceted approach. One, we're spending 90% of our lives indoors, right? Now, especially with COVID, has really, I think, shaken us of just how much we take for granted of just maybe our routines, going to just being outside, right? But I think that was the first thing, at least, that really sunk home with us, was creating a product, which maybe this will help if I'll share my screen here when I talk through this. But the idea was, there we go, to create a turnkey living wall product that can be simply delivered and assembled into the office without us having to tap into water lines, drainage, electric for plant lighting. Can we create something that's turnkey for the office to make an impact, or for our homes to make an impact, and then doing it, sustainably with, hydroponic technology, so it's 10 to 15 times more water efficient than soil. It also doesn't decay or break down over time. So we wanted to be really conscious of not just creating something that celebrates sustainability in nature, but really being green and sustainable in our approach, and what we believe is innovative design and designing with our environment and for our environment, where we use almost 1,200 recycled plastic bottles to make up what these living wall panels are. So that was our first. That was kind of our first thought of. We see this on a massive scale, right? Of large custom walls and green roofs being applied to cities wide, but and that's great, and it's going to be, especially when we go into building efficiencies and energy savings. But we wanted to first connect people back to nature, because we know ultimately that's going to help lead reconnect our relationship to our environment, because we're just removed from it. So our first approach was, let's create a product that's seamless, that's beautiful, and that can make an impact without it being intrusive, or what's pretty costly for a custom living wall. And just to give you an idea of the size of this, this is 6 feet by 8 foot wide. So here on the computer screen.
So this is basically an example of one panel that you can have on your office wall, or like a partition or something.
Yes. Yeah. We've designed this one specifically to be mounted onto the wall. So it's very, and we're working mostly, a lot of our clients we're working with, whether it's a co-working space or it's an architect, they want the ability to customize it. So we created this specific size, one, to make the biggest impact in the space, but two, where they can actually begin to create these long modulars, I should say, within the office space without having to do what's traditionally done as water lines and drainage, which adds, I guess for a reference, a living wall, a custom living wall of this size, maybe it's for an amenity space or it's a common area. It is close to probably 20,000, I'd say, maybe 25, depending on the system, where this is 7,500. Well, we're beginning to work through even to make it more available, even working through monthly leasing for co-working spaces.
Do you have any other photos or videos of this? We've been pausing on this. There we go. Not more dynamic.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes.
Like you said, this is approximately $7,500. So it's not exactly like extremely affordable for the average person at the moment. And like you said, you're working mostly with like co-working spaces and offices, like you said, right? So, and obviously, like this thing looks gorgeous, and obviously we all love plants. Like I would rather just intuitively, we'd rather be in an office that's abundant with plants, right? So I think the aesthetic and emotional appeal is apparent. Can you talk about what outcomes are you promising? Because I think the emotional part is a given, right? I mean, that looks gorgeous. I want that in my room, but how do I justify the cost, right? What are you promising with this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's what's most exciting about this industry. So just to kind of give a reference to how long living wall technology has been available. I mean, it's a 20, maybe 30-year-old industry. Going back to kind of, my investment banking days and how did I get to here was you're hearing and seeing, with whether it's Gensler or HOK or SOM or Google, all beginning to talk about biophilic design and how it's tied to employee performance, retaining talent, attracting talent. But now even getting to some of these more tangible results, which has been done, I want to make sure I'm quoting this correctly, but Texas A&M University did a study of just having a simple plant in a workspace and just an office or desk plant, excuse me. And that person was tasked with computer task list, and they became 12 to 18% more productive. So then they start seeing, okay, there's some more tangible results than just in terms of productivity. But I think what's really fascinating now, it's really relevant, is having plants in the workspace also helps with creativity by, again, almost 20%. But probably the biggest ROI, and this is pretty fascinating, is and I'll have to, after this, source the study. It's not a white paper, but I can't think of it.
Your face, actually, I think we'd like to see you talking.
Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah,
you lost my own thoughts here. But one of the studies that we done, or excuse me, we didn't do, but we point to is lowering of absenteeism, lowering sick days by as much as 60%. So when we think about that, that is as much as $2,000 per employee for each office. Mm-hmm. So now corporate is beginning to see ways of, again, creating this culture, creating something that ties with sustainability, that but also makes their workforce more productive and efficient. And so that's been an exciting part of the conversation, is we're not necessarily pushing for living walls biophilic design. It's just it's a trend that has been embraced by again, architects, corporate, and now developers.
Okay. So that was, so you talked about like outcomes in terms of workforce productivity. Can you also talk about like, because I went through the literature and all like that. You're talking about like cost savings and also environmental benefits, how, you know, whether it's air purification or all that stuff as well?
Yes, yeah, I think in cost savings is mostly tied to the product that we have been able to deliver. That's with the Model Z. The biggest one is, you know, a good example is, you know, having the option to take it if you're being removed from the office,
Could you,
or you're moving.
could you turn on your video? Sorry, I keep on
Yeah, no
pestering
worries.
you with this. Sorry. I think
No,
I
no
think
worries.
it's nice for people to see your face. Right? Oh no, I think that's not. You're just sharing the screen.
Oh, interesting. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, for the cost savings,
Okay.
and then the screen is being shared too. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
For the cost savings, that's where we really wanted to build a product that fits in the space. It's flexible, but, you know, also gives the client the option to take it with them as they outgrow that space or move out of that space. Where I think it gets a little more fascinating, I guess, in terms of ROIs, and something we're going to be building out with Google actually in June with their climate tech cohort, is our sensors for more of our larger scale projects, custom walls. Looks like it's going to take a moment here to load these images. But what we've done was, you know, on a smaller scale. But what we've been able to do is point to studies again with urban cities that are embracing biophilic design. Stefani Boeri is probably the most notable or relevant designers that's been working with biophilic design in terms of air purification. He did a 2-story residential in Milan and worked with the city of Milan to actually absorb you know, thousands of tons of CO2 within this given setting. And so that really sparked the idea, again, having an architect in a city begin working together to how do we create this new added function to building spaces, and how does it relate back to air purification, air quality, which was one of the worst cities in the world, and also heat mitigation, heat island effects. And so that was one of the first, I think, public large-scale projects that really spearheaded the trend in doing massive, larger custom living walls, but also green roofs. And so one of the things we wanted to be able to point to, as opposed to, you know, it's beautiful, it has these good feelings, but how can we make this more tangible? How can we make this a solution with development, with residential or with office? So this is for a project that's being proposed for creating 5,000 net zero homes in the next 5 years with a really forward-thinking UK-based developer. And what's really exciting about this is these aren't luxury units. These are going to be designed for affordable housing. And so as we think about just, you know, how does this apply to just, you know, not within maybe a nice corporate office, but just as part of a society, this is very much the world that we're envisioning, and I think that's beginning to transcend into reality. What's fascinating about this, so we obviously focus on air quality. What's that do in terms of capturing carbon and what that looks like over 50 years is each about per square foot, we're estimating about 0.5 pound of CO2 being absorbed annually. And so it really depends on plant species. Airflow is a really big factor, but we've designed our panels to absorb air, which then goes into the plant roots, where plants do this amazing thing, photosynthesis, to begin to absorb CO2 and to release clean air. So those are one of the factors. The biggest one that we could point to today is just the ability for our technology, which is rock wool. So again, it's hydroponic, to act as an insulator for the building. So depending on the climate zone, what environment or what season it is, it could help the building retain as much as 15% of heat during winter months. And what's pretty shocking, as much as 30% during summer months for cooling. AC takes a really big toll on the energy being used. And so this has been what I think has been more and more commonly spread with developers and thinking through some of these energy saving benefits. Again, these are very much kind of our theories. We're going to be testing it out with Google's team. Our thesis. We're going to be testing out with Google to create these theories and these tangible metrics on how does it affect a citywide carbon footprint. But one thing that that's pretty common, or I guess well known, has been done by the EPA, and it's a study that they basically set into New York. And for New York were to trade their glass skyscrapers for green roofs alone, which I'm going to show as well, it would lower the entire city temperature by as much as 7 to 8 degrees. So when we think about that, from a city's saving benefits from its heating costs and heat mitigation, it's billions over time of city. And what's pretty fascinating, again, just with green roofs, is there's some amazing tax incentives that are being put in place for developers, for urban development designers to begin speccing this out and including these part of these projects, and because it's simply being mandated now. But this is what makes up our technology of these panels. So whether it's a Model Z or it's a custom living wall, we're able to create these custom environments and create these monolithic living walls.
So, okay, so your addressable market is, you're going for basically residential and commercial buildings globally, or you're in the States currently, right? So what is your addressable market you're thinking here?
Yeah, so we're currently in the States, maybe not so surprisingly. The US is behind quite a bit in terms of sustainability and sustainable practices. We're about probably 10, maybe 15 years. And that would be us putting it nicely. But now we're seeing a big focus in the US. And I guess the most, just to show you kind of the infancy that this is in, San Francisco is one of the first cities to actually begin putting these aggressive tax incentives for green roofs, meaning any large development or any large renovation is required to have a green roof as part of the build out. That was the first city. That was back in 2017. Shortly after, Denver was another city that put these green roof ordinances in. Seattle, Portland, Philadelphia, Chicago was actually one of the first cities to begin, I think, scaling it as part of its skyline, but never officially put any tax incentives or mandates outside of it being maybe tied to a LEED certification, which is just how sustainable the building is. But going back to New York, was probably, I think, for us signaled that this is not just a trend, but it's being more and more implemented into cities, was in 2019. So this is all very much in its infancy. So obviously developments, being scaled across, to your point, residential, office, and now some offices being prefabbed as residential. So we'll see how that trend continues to play. But I think for us, what's exciting in terms of outside of just the benefits of, okay, well, it provides cleaner air. Okay, it helps the building become more efficient. It's really tied to LEED certifications and now WELL certifications. So these are the two main driving factors for our industry. And I think what's exciting because it makes it become more adaptable, and it's being adopted at this point. Again, almost every project now you see here in the US. I'm trying to think. BREEAM, I believe, is the standard for Europe, and they're very, very similar in the sense that they're talking about materials that are being used, how efficient the building is. There's different tiers, levels. Again, gold is a pretty common one. Platinum certified is the highest mark, and so we just play a factor in that. But what's exciting is that allows our technology to be more not just mainstream, but part of the solution for sustainable building and for sustainable living.
So what do you think changed in the US recently where more local governments are starting to incentivize the installation of all these?
I mean, truthfully, a lot of the traction, and I would say the first market adopters was Asia. Incredible projects that have been using biophilic design. And I guess Singapore maybe has the most recognized body of work, and that's the airport. Yep. I think that and what's fascinating, right, is once you're in that airport and you're being submersed in this beautiful biodiversity, it really just shows you the creativity, but also the effect. And I think doing that in such a public way and such it's become part of. I think of Connie Nost actually named it the #1 and #2 place to visit in the world as an airport. So and in that city completely celebrates sustainability and its design too. But you're certainly seeing it in Hong Kong. Just the level of development, and so I think the U.S. is slowly catching on. But at this point, it was happening everywhere else, but in the U.S. And I think it was just natural evolution, but also just seeing from a development perspective and quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, this makes for a much more positive picture of the future. We keep seeing movies of like futuristic dystopias, but I'd rather see this. So we're now looking at a green roof, right? So how large is a panel here, and how much do they go for?
Yeah, what's pretty fascinating when it comes to green roofs is they're much more adoptable. This is a product that we've launched. We haven't necessarily been focusing on installations yet, but for green roofs, so we still use the core technology of their hydroponic, and they roll out almost like a carpet on your roof. We can do sloped green roofs. I mean, there's two different variations too. There's intensive and extensive green roofs. The difference between the two is this is an extensive green roof, meaning it's being covered, but there's not much depth into the green roof. Where what's pretty exciting is once we start doing intensive green roofs, now you can start really adding some more biodiversity and shrubs and trees and perennials, all to begin creating these new environments for bird species, for bees, which maybe doesn't, but we need the bees, right? They're pretty impactful on their habitats, but as much as 70 different species even within a city. So I think it's really fascinating that it has more to do not just with the efficiency of the building, which green roofs, I guess one big mark that I've left from it being adopted is water storm management. So when we think of just even our waterways and over flooding, now with rainy seasons or really just weather patterns being more extreme than in the past, this has been a really big solution for retaining up to 80% of that water storm management. So, which again leads to overflooding, but also for the water that we drink. So it helps cleanse it, and that's probably been one of the biggest advocates for green roofs, is that it helps address that from a city scale.
Cool. How has Zauben been received since the start? How has your growth been?
Well, there was one more thing, sorry, that you asked on that question that I just realized I didn't answer. But in terms of square footage, it's $20 to $25 a square foot for a green roof. What's pretty fascinating though is you're not replacing it, unlike a traditional roof, which might be after 25 years, the life expectancy. The reason that being is again, it just acts as another layer of insulation to the building it's being part of now. So that's another big reason. You're not having to, whether it's re-roof your home or when we talk about buildings too, they become these heat island traps, really, of concrete and tar. And these dark colors attracting and really heating up the space, and there are again heat island effects. So that's another big part of that. In terms of growth and how we've been to scale, we're very much your kind of startup growth company. We just celebrated our second year, most of which was kind of, I guess, building out and funding was in the pandemic, which was challenging, but also I think in a lot of ways too, again, was a silver lining because health and wellness is now at the forefront. Almost everything we're doing now, and it's on a global scale too. So I think it's we've really hit this reflection point that it needs to become part of, and it has, but it's really forced it too, just even how we're spending our days here. Whether it's a work, home, or away, school, or hospitality. But it's all being part of that conversation now in the built environment, which is it's been very exciting for us.
Nice. So talk about, how stiff is the competition in this market, and how do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, I think for the terms of competition, one thing that we found of entering this industry was it's very much mom and pop shops. And what I mean by that is it's local landscapers, it's garden companies, it's incredibly fragmented. And so
sharing the screen, I think we're getting a mirror echo thing. There we go, better. And then turn on your camera if that's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, no, sorry about that too. I'm like very
no, this is like
about the display. Sorry. All right, go ahead.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the market's incredibly fragmented. And so what I mean by that is, let's just say it's Heinz, the developer, or it's JLL. What we're finding is there's not necessarily a adapted technology, but also a provider. And so when they view these projects, whether it's in New York or San Francisco, they're usually working with two different vendors, which ultimately is not giving a what's the word I'm looking for? A standardized product. So with that can be poor experience from technology. So I'll use an example. There's plastic pot rack systems for living walls, which is quite literally pot racks you could buy at Home Depot, or felt systems that you can put plants in. That they're not sophisticated and they don't perform over time. So a big problem with that is dependability, longevity, and then the entire customer experience, right? And it's still expensive. And so when we talk of competitors, there's maybe, I'd say 5 to 8 living wall and green roof competitors in our market, but there isn't a single brand company that's offering green roofs, living walls, and then overseeing, I think, a standardized hydroponic technology, sensors. That's where we differentiate ourselves in all our product lines. but being able to deliver that standard process and really making the process seamless. Just in terms of what it is today. So I guess a good example is if you were to get a living wall, let's just say for your apartment, you'd reach out to a local vendor. That's really it. There's no national company competitor, and then you might only have a few options on that technology, and you'll work with an electrician, you'll work with a GC, all for your apartment. You'll then have to work with a landscaping company. We really wanted to streamline that process and owning it for our clients, which makes it allows us to scale easier to city, but also it just kind of brings up our industry to speed, right? Of what's really expected as part of that experience. It's working as consultants, but also owning those other areas that have been pain points.
Okay, so it's a lot about the servicing and also the tech too, right? Because you talk about the automation behind the carrying of the living walls as well, right?
Yes, moisture levels, salinity levels, light levels. Those are all things that we have kind of, again, 24/7 performance. We're optimizing, making sure that the product is performing, as opposed to monthly maintenance visits. And hey, there's a sediment that's collected in the irrigation. It's not being watered, so it's drying up. So you're seeing plant failures. That's been a really big part of how we're thinking through it.
So what are your growth plans, say, in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think we've been really focused on the Model Z as for us to scale just office to office. But we have some really cool projects in terms of building North America's tallest living wall. We're working with the city of Dallas specifically for air purification. Working with another great forward-thinking developer. Sonder is the tenant on that building. So they're also looking for places that are celebrating biophilic design as part of their portfolio. But I think as we grow, our growth strategy will be tied to some great developers, architects, certainly forward-thinking companies, but at a city policy level, I think that's where it gets really exciting, and how to green cities and help with these, help lessen our carbon footprints and really begin thinking through air quality and CO2 capturing.
So to achieve those goals, the 3 to 5 year scaling goals that you just outlined, what do you think you need in order to attain that? Whether it's investing or partnerships or more human resources, what do you think is important to your scaling plans?
Oh, just like any startup growth company, capital is a big part of it. Capital partnerships, having strategic investors. I think we have a really great board of advisors for us, as well as just, again, active strategic investors that help guiding us. But I think in terms of just pure growth, it will be marketing, it will be sales, it will be product innovation. A lot of R&D has been going into that to date. When we talk about some of these partnerships with, again, Google, and collaborating with their team, I think getting big tech as part of the conversation and how they're working with smart cities. I think that's something I didn't really mention, but cities are being more and more closely tied to being smart. And so a lot of that is understanding just the building efficiencies, the tech that's being used, the outdated technology, but also just some of the outdated legislation that's been part of it. And it's been, it can be quite a burden in terms of innovation. But yes, we're certainly looking to accelerate growth here, but capital is always part of that conversation.
And maybe I wasn't clear when I asked it. So, are you only currently serving U.S. customers, or are you expanding abroad, doing operations abroad as well?
Got you. Yes, we are planning. So part of that 3 to 5 year growth plan would be expanding UK, Ireland, Netherlands, France. I feel like there's one more. I believe Germany.
Okay.
Those are kind of our immediate markets that we're looking to pursue.
Is it
probably close to 3 years?
The political landscape of Europe?
A lot of it, yes, but also just our distribution partners and where we feel confident with local nurseries and where we can execute. But you know, the Netherlands is fantastic, embracing biofuel design, even to the degree of putting green roofs as part of their bus stops. Everything they do has been green roofs. Germany's also been very, very, I think, one of the larger markets for green roofs and living walls. But for us, it's really just operations, distribution. How can we go in those markets confidently, knowing that we can execute, but also grow?
Nice. All right. Wow. This was really great. I think we're towards the end of the interview. Is there any way that so how can people get in touch with you, whether it's to pursue a partnership or ask further questions or whatever? There's an opportunity to put in contacts.
Yeah, you can visit our website. Connect with me, LinkedIn, Zach Smith. Go to our website. We have a contact us form. Whatever the project or interest gets connected to me and my team. So happy for anyone that's interested in it to share more.
Great, and thanks a lot for this hour and to share with us with this project. It's something really exciting. It looks gorgeous and it's got all these benefits and it's shaping an environment that's like we really want to see more of in our urban cityscape and all like that. So what you're doing here is really exciting, and it was great talking to you, and let's keep in touch and wish you all the best.
That was a pleasure. Thank you so much.